You're standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind pulling at your clothes, the vast, empty space stretching out before you. And then it happens. A thought flashes through your mind, uninvited and terrifying. What if I just jumped? You freeze. Your heart races. You step back, shaken, wondering if something is deeply wrong with you. But here's what no one tells you. That dark whisper isn't madness. It's your brain trying to keep you alive. Welcome to one of the most disturbing and misunderstood phenomena of the human mind, l'appel du vide, the call of the void. It's that sudden, inexplicable urge to do something catastrophically self-destructive when you're in a position of danger. To swerve your car into oncoming traffic, to jump from a high building, to step in front of a moving train. These thoughts come without warning, without desire, without reason. And they happen to almost everyone. The first time it happens, you feel insane. You question everything about yourself. Am I suicidal? Am I losing control? Why would my brain betray me like this? But the truth is far more complex and fascinating than you could imagine. These intrusive thoughts aren't a sign of mental illness or hidden desires. They're actually a sophisticated safety mechanism, a glitch in your brain's threat detection system, and a window into the strange way your consciousness processes danger and free will. Let's start with what's actually happening in your brain when the void calls to you. Your mind is constantly running simulations. Every second, your brain is predicting outcomes, calculating risks, and preparing responses to potential threats. When you stand near a cliff, your brain doesn't just register the danger passively. It actively models what would happen if you fell. It creates a vivid mental simulation of the worst-case scenario. This is normal. This is survival. But here's where it gets weird. Your brain has two systems working simultaneously. The automatic system recognizes the danger instantly and triggers fear, making you step back from the edge. But your conscious mind, your sense of agency and control, suddenly becomes hyper-aware of your own power in that moment. You realize, with shocking clarity, that you could override your survival instinct. You could choose to jump. You have the physical capability. And that realization itself becomes disturbing. The call of the void isn't a desire to die. It's a recognition of your own agency in a moment of extreme danger. It's your consciousness becoming acutely aware that you are in control of your body, even in ways that could destroy you. Your brain shows you the possibility, not because it wants you to do it, but because it's testing the boundaries between automatic survival responses and conscious choice. Think about it this way. When you're standing in a safe room, you don't think, I could stab myself with that pen, or I could drink that cleaning product under the sink. But put yourself at the edge of a cliff, and suddenly the thought, I could jump, becomes intrusive and frightening. Why? Because the danger is real and immediate. Your brain is on high alert. The survival system is activated. And in that heightened state, your consciousness becomes hypersensitive to the fact that you have free will, even the free will to harm yourself. Scientists call these high-place phenomena, or HPP. Research shows that about 50% of people experience these thoughts at some point in their lives. A study conducted at Florida State University found that these intrusive thoughts are more common in people who have high anxiety sensitivity, not because they're more suicidal, but because they're more attuned to physical sensations and perceived threats. Their brains are simply more vigilant. Here's what makes it even more interesting. People who experience the call of the void are often less likely to actually harm themselves than those who don't. Why? Because the thought disturbs them. It creates immediate fear and aversion. If you were actually suicidal, the thought of jumping wouldn't shock you. It wouldn't make you step back in horror. The fact that the thought feels intrusive and wrong is evidence that it goes against your true desires. But the call of the void doesn't just happen at cliffs. It can occur in any situation where you're confronted with sudden, irreversible danger that you have the power to trigger. You're driving on the highway, and suddenly you think, I could jerk the wheel right now and crash. You're holding a baby, and the thought flashes, what if I dropped this child? You're at a train platform, and your mind whispers, I could step forward. These thoughts are terrifying because they feel alien. They don't match who you are or what you want. And that's exactly the point. They're not coming from your desires. They're coming from your brain's hyperactive threat system, which is so sensitive to danger that it's actually simulating the threats you could create yourself. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Our ancestors lived in a world full of physical dangers. Falling from heights, encountering predators, navigating treacherous terrain. The brains that survived were the ones that could anticipate danger before it happened. They ran mental simulations constantly. What if there's a predator behind that tree? What if this branch breaks? What if I slip on this rock? But here's the evolutionary quirk. Our brains got so good at simulating dangers that they started simulating dangers we could cause ourselves. Because in a complex social world, self-generated threats became relevant. What if I say the wrong thing and get expelled from the tribe? What if I eat the wrong plant? What if I trust the wrong person? Your brain needed to model not just external threats, but threats that could arise from your own actions. Fast forward to modern humans, and this system is still running. But now we have skyscrapers, cars, trains, and countless scenarios where one wrong move could be fatal. So your brain, doing what it's designed to do, shows you these possibilities. Not because it wants you to act on them, but because recognizing the danger is how it keeps you safe. The disturbing part is the consciousness component. You're not just afraid of falling. You're afraid of the fact that you could choose to fall. And that fear of your own agency, that sudden awareness of how fragile the boundary is between safety and destruction, creates a unique kind of psychological vertigo. Philosophers have long been fascinated by this phenomenon because it touches on fundamental questions about free will and the self. If your brain can generate thoughts that feel completely alien to who you are, then who exactly is you? Are you the consciousness that recoils from these thoughts? Or are you the brain that generated them in the first place? The call of the void reveals that your mind is not a unified thing. It's a collection of systems, sometimes working together, sometimes in conflict. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote about this experience in his work on existentialism. He described the vertigo you feel at a cliff's edge not as fear of falling, but as fear of your own freedom. You're confronted with the reality that nothing is stopping you from jumping except your own choice. There are no physical barriers, no external forces holding you back, only your decision. And that level of freedom, that radical responsibility for your own existence, is terrifying. This is why the call of the void is different from suicidal ideation. Suicidal thoughts come from a place of pain, hopelessness, and a desire to escape suffering. They feel wanted, even if they're frightening. The call of the void, by contrast, is ego-dystonic. It's unwanted. It feels like an intrusion from outside yourself. And that's the key difference. It's your brain showing you a possibility, not expressing a desire. But knowing this doesn't always make the experience less frightening. When the thought strikes, it can feel overwhelming. Your heart pounds. Your hands shake. You might experience a wave of derealization, a feeling that nothing is quite real. This is your anxiety system kicking into overdrive, responding to the perceived threat, even though the threat is just a thought. So what do you do when a void calls? First, recognize it for what it is. It's not a sign that you're going crazy or that you secretly want to harm yourself. It's a glitch, a byproduct of having a brain that's extremely good at detecting danger. Second, don't fight the thought. Trying to suppress intrusive thoughts usually makes them more frequent and more intense. Instead, acknowledge it. There's that thought again. My brain is being overly cautious. Third, redirect your attention. Move away from the edge. Change your environment. Engage your senses in something grounding. Understanding the call of the void also helps us understand something deeper about consciousness and control. We like to believe we're in complete control of our minds, that every thought we have is intentional and meaningful. But the reality is that your brain generates thousands of thoughts every day, and most of them are just noise. Random feeling, simulation, association. Your consciousness is like a spotlight, choosing which thoughts to focus on and which to ignore. The call of the void becomes problematic only when you give it too much attention, when you mistake it for something meaningful rather than recognizing it as mental static. There's also a cultural dimension to this phenomenon. In many Western societies, we're taught to trust our thoughts, to believe that our inner voice always reflects our true self. But in many Eastern philosophies, particularly in Buddhism, there's a recognition that thoughts are just thoughts. They arise and pass away. They don't define you. The practice of mindfulness is partly about learning to observe thoughts without identifying with them, without believing that every thought that crosses your mind is significant or true. The call of the void is a perfect example of why this perspective is valuable. The thought, "I could jump," is just a thought. It arises because your brain is doing its job, modeling dangers and testing boundaries. It doesn't mean anything about who you are or what you want. It's just your threat detection system being hyperactive. And once you understand that, the thought loses its power. But there's another layer to this phenomenon that's worth exploring. Some researchers believe the call of the void is also related to our fascination with mortality itself. Humans are unique in our awareness of death. We know we're going to die, and we spend much of our lives trying not to think about it. But when you're at a high place, confronted with the very real possibility of death, that awareness becomes unavoidable. And there's something almost magnetic about it. Not because you want to die, but because you're drawn to contemplate the thing you spend so much energy avoiding. Ernest Becker, in his book The Denial of Death, argued that much of human behavior is driven by our terror of mortality and our attempts to deny it. We build monuments, create art, pursue fame, have children, all in an effort to achieve symbolic immortality. But the call of the void is a moment when that denial breaks down. You're forced to confront your own fragility, your own mortality, and the thinness of the line between life and death. And perhaps, on some level, there's a twisted curiosity in that moment. What would it feel like? What would happen? Not because you want to experience it, but because your mind can't help but wonder. This is the same curiosity that makes people slow down to look at car accidents or watch horror movies. We're drawn to danger and death, not because we want to experience them, but because contemplating them makes us feel more alive. The call of the void also intersects with another psychological phenomenon, the imp of the perverse. This concept, coined by Edgar Allan Poe, describes the urge to do something precisely because it's wrong or dangerous. It's the impulse to blurt out something inappropriate in a quiet room, to touch a hot stove even though you know it will burn you, to laugh at a funeral. It's not that you want the negative outcome. It's that the prohibition itself makes the action tempting. Your brain is wired to notice possibilities, especially forbidden ones. And when something is extremely forbidden, like jumping off a cliff, your brain fixates on it. Not because you want to do it, but because the taboo nature of the action makes it psychologically salient. It's the same reason why telling someone don't think about a pink elephant makes them immediately think about a pink elephant. The prohibition highlights the very thing you're trying to avoid. So when you're at a high place and your brain tells you don't jump, part of your mind immediately becomes aware of the possibility of jumping. And that awareness, that recognition of the forbidden action, is what creates the intrusive thought. It's your brain being hyper-aware of the one thing you absolutely must not do. The good news is that for most people, the call of the void is fleeting. The thought comes, you feel a moment of fear or discomfort, and then it passes. You step back from the edge, your heart rate returns to normal, and you move on with your day. But for some people, especially those with anxiety disorders or OCD, these intrusive thoughts can become persistent and distressing. In cases like that, the thoughts themselves aren't the problem. The problem is the meaning you assign to them. If you believe that having the thought means you're dangerous or suicidal, you'll become anxious. And that anxiety makes the thoughts more frequent. You enter a cycle where the fear of the thoughts makes them more intrusive, which increases your fear, which makes them even more intrusive. Cognitive behavioral therapy, particularly a technique called exposure and response prevention, can be incredibly helpful for breaking this cycle. The idea is to acknowledge the thoughts without trying to suppress them or assign them meaning. You learn to sit with the discomfort, to recognize that thoughts are just thoughts, and to break the connection between the thought and the emotional response. But even for those who don't struggle with persistent intrusive thoughts, the call of the void is a reminder of something important about being human. You're not your thoughts. Your mind generates thousands of ideas, images, and impulses every day, and most of them are meaningless. You are the one who chooses which thoughts to engage with, which to act on, and which to let pass by like clouds in the sky. The call of the void is also a reminder of your own power. It's disturbing precisely because it shows you how much control you have. You could, if you chose to, do something catastrophic. And the fact that you don't, the fact that you choose safety in life, is a testament to your values, your survival instinct, and your fundamental desire to exist. In a strange way, the call of the void is life-affirming. It shows you the edge of the abyss and reminds you how much you want to stay away from it. It's your brain saying, look how dangerous this is. Look how important it is that we don't do this. And in that moment of recognition, you're confronted with your own will to live. So the next time you're standing at a high place and that dark thought whispers in your mind, don't be afraid. Don't think you're broken or dangerous. Recognize it for what it is. Your brain doing its job, showing you danger so you can avoid it. Step back from the edge. Take a breath. And remember that the fact that the thought disturbs you is proof that it's not who you are. The void may call, but you don't have to answer. And the choice to walk away, to choose life, to continue existing in this strange and beautiful world is one of the most powerful choices you make every single day, often without even realizing it. If this video made you see your own mind in a new way, subscribe to explore more mysteries of human consciousness. Hit the like button if the void has ever called to you. And comment below with your city so we can see where in the world people are experiencing this fascinating phenomenon.